So what I'm going to have you guys do is kind of form your own interview list of like who you want to target and who you want to go after, both from like who you really want to work for and also like who you really want to meet. And so the very first one is kind of like what the gentleman in the back was saying is, what are your interests? So right now I just want you guys to jot down like a couple interests, and you can do it as I talk or whatever. And when I was kind of figuring out what my interests were, one of them was entrepreneurship. And I knew that I wanted to meet a lot of entrepreneurs that had been successful, who had started companies. And like I mentioned earlier in that the keynote, this is the Entrepreneur of the Year in Arizona, the Brownie dude. And this guy was like, he was, I don't want to say he was exactly like me. Like he's, I don't know. He was an entrepreneur, right? So I wanted to ask those same questions, like, how do you determine what the best ideas are to go after and pursue? How do you get financing? Like all those different questions that an entrepreneur should have. So that was one of my interests, was entrepreneurship. Another interest, mentioned earlier, sports. So went after a lot of different sports clubs. Who would you go after if your interest was like social media? Mark Zuckerberg. Mark, come talk to me. Start Facebook feed. I think that with social media, so you take an interest like this and you can extrapolate it. So like the lady was saying over there about LinkedIn, excellent idea. Like plug in your interest and type in your keyword, then you'll be able to pull up companies, people that are in a given area around that interest or keyword. So with social media, if you did that, you'd be able to pull up some social media managers, some digital strategists, some social media companies here in Fort Worth. Like that'd be a pretty sweet thing. And I think it was a question earlier in that panel was like, how do I network outside of Fort Worth and discover people outside of Fort Worth and companies outside of Fort Worth? And I think LinkedIn is a really solid tool to do that, especially if you have your interests. Second thing, what's hanging on your walls? So this is something that, like, when you're bored in your bedroom, kind of like, crafting your list or whatever, and you just start looking around, like, there's some really cool things that are in your house that you're just unconscious, that you're, like, really into, and I think this is a pretty good place to discover. So that's a homework assignment. It's like, go home and, like, think about, like, oh yeah, I do have, that thing that I use all the time, or oh yeah, that thing does, like, give me a little inspiration, and you never know what kind of companies like create those different things. So again, what products do you use on a daily basis? Like I'm wearing a Jordan shirt, right? So I went and interviewed that footwear designer at Jordan. I've got some Reef sandals on, so I stopped by San Diego and interviewed the marketing director for Reef and the PR person. Got a little MacBook, so I interviewed Steve Jobs at Apple. No. But yeah, just think about the different products that you use. Like, I mean, like my backpack right here is like an OGO, and this thing is like a road warrior. This thing has like been with me for 5 years, and it's my favorite backpack in the world. So like if I was gonna go work for someone, like OGO would be a place that makes products that are pretty sweet, and I wouldn't mind doing that. So just think about the different products that you're using on a daily basis. To think about what kind of companies you want to go after or who you want to meet based off the products that you use. Because, I mean, obviously you can have a lot to talk about when you use that product and places to improve. Like one of the people we interviewed was a video game designer at EA Sports, and literally got his job because he played a video game and jotted down the 10 things that he would change about that video game and sent it to the producer, and ended up getting an interview based off of that. Where do you want to go? So this is actually kind of a cool thing. When I was drafting up that whole list of places to go and people to meet and all that stuff, I jotted down Notre Dame football, because it's just always like a place that I've wanted to go. And so I basically sent off like a press request to the Notre Dame football PR director, and I wanted to get press passes for the 4 of us to the Notre Dame home football game for the very first game of the year. And he wrote back to my request, and he's like, 4 press passes for 4 Pursuit Passion dudes? that's a pretty tall order for the New York Times, what makes you guys so special. But long story short, like just because we had jotted down where we wanted to go and we're like, pretty persistent about it, we ended up getting 4 press passes to the Notre Dame football game, watched the game from the field, and then like went to the post conference and like interviewed Charlie Weiss after. So it's like pretty cool when you think about the different companies that you would eventually want to go visit, the cities that you would want to live in, just different things like that. Wrapping your head around that stuff is pretty powerful. Now this is like one of the most important things, is asking to meet the most interesting person from someone. So from that someone, friends and fam, you guys said that earlier, employers and associations. So I'm sure, all right, so how many people have had like a job during college? All right, so my job during college was to sell sorority clothing to sororities. And it was like it still is the coolest job I've ever worked. Because like I would go in and with like a couple bags of clothing, I'd be the only dude, set it down, and there'd be like 150 girls and me. And I'd sell them clothes. And it was like, and sororities like kind of have like some cash, so I'd walk out there with like $800. I'm like, yeah, it's pretty sweet. So, but I bring that up because the owner of that company, like, knew some people, knew some college campuses, had like a lot of relations, and the people that you work for always have some contacts, and there's no better person to get referred by than someone who knows you in a working environment that will obviously refer you off to other people who are potentially hiring, people that they know. So employers and associations is a pretty strong point. So jot that down on your list. Contact whoever I worked for in the last 3 years. Educators and Career Center folk. So again, you want referrals to be from people that know you very well. And the people that know you well are teachers, especially if you've had some sort of like relationship with them. They've obviously know you, they've given you a grade or whatever. This is a good place to start. And then Career Center employees, anytime you pop in there, those guys are paid to help you out. And that's like a really underutilized resource on college campuses, is the people that know all different types of really interesting alumni that are in given fields, that all you got to do is pop in the office one day and just ask them, like, who do you know in X city or in X industry that is a TCU alum that I could potentially talk to see what it's like to work in that job or at that company. And it's pretty phenomenal, the type of people that you'll meet. Like, for instance, when we were on our tour, we ended up interviewing the president of the San Francisco Giants, because one of the people that worked there was an alum and referred us and got us an interview. And then from that, we ended up interviewing the Los Angeles Clippers, the NBA, Major League Baseball, because we were in that one interview and then always finish every interview with, who else can I talk to? Just expanding our network that way. And local reporters. So reporters are out there every single day meeting the most interesting people in the community, and just seriously like picking up the phone or emailing these guys and being like, hey, I'd love to meet the most interesting person that you've come across in a given area, like business or health or whatever. Local reporters are like the feet on the street, the front lines people that can really refer you to some interesting folk. And one of the people that comes to mind is when we were going to Minneapolis, I got a hold of this one reporter, and they referred us to this boxing gym that was it was the only boxing gym that was owned by a woman in the United States of America. And the people that worked there were just like, one of them was a former boxer that went blind, and he was a trainer. He was like 72 years old. And then we had another dude who had trained like 5 world heavyweight champs that was like 83 years old in a wheelchair, but was training this Anthony the Bullet Basante, which was like this boxer who was on the Contender, and he was there when we stopped by. So it's like the type of stuff that could happen when you just hit up people that know interesting people, can make some fun stuff happen.